Lakeside Dental Clinic, Go Island, is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic.
When Lei becomes pregnant with her second child, she faces the anguish of continuing her pregnancy or having a forced abortion as required by Chinese law. And a bird saying tells Lei's story with the one-child policy in China. We're discussing that topic today with Nanaimo born and based author Diane Bestwick. Regional foods made delicious, recipes from a West Coast galley, and revisiting spirit spheres. We're here at the North Nanaimo Library, a new branch of the Vancouver Island Regional Library. That is Diane Bestwick, and she's authored this book, And a Bird Sang. It tells a very personal first-hand account of Lei and her family who struggle through the experience of becoming pregnant when only one child is allowed under the one-child policy in China. And it's a very detailed account that sort of opens up a cultural discussion, a political discussion, and a human rights discussion. We're going to try and touch on all of that later on this edition of Go Island. But first, with so much food coming from other places around the world, a trio of ladies in Royston decided to get together and form an informal cooperative to touch on that very topic, sourcing out local food and making it delicious. Here is Annette Lucas. The group does not have a formal website or anything like that, but they do welcome information, new members, and suggestions on how they could coordinate and structure their gatherings. If you are interested in participating in that group, the best place to go is Nanoose Edibles, Nanoose Edibles Farm in Nanoose Bay, and you can ask for Barbara or Nancy there. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. This is Diane Bestwick, author of And a Bird Sang, and it really personifies the policy that families can only have one child in China. When I read the book, what year is this? I was thinking it was 1800s or something, but this is current time.
Yes, although they have changed the law to say if you're a one child and I'm a one child born, then we could have two. But they still have so many requirements. There are 10 requirements to have that second child.
And if you don't meet those 10 requirements, you are forced by law to have an abortion.
Or to have the child born and perhaps give it up, or definitely do something about this child that you have.
You spent 8 years in China as a teacher. You go back frequently to visit. You've written this novel, but had it very factually checked by people who live there and experience it on a daily basis. It opens up the whole issue of human rights and abortion, and how can the government come in and tell you how to reproduce or not.
There's such pressure by the society, their families perhaps, to have that one perfect male, usually child, although some are starting to like a girl child because there's less to raise them education-wise and they know girls do stay at home, but there's that pressure. So if they do decide to give up the child, often like it's put near an orphanage or a church or in a busy building, and they will be hiding nearby to see who picks it up and try their best to follow. They will know what birthday that child has. They haven't abandoned it. They've, under pressure of government policy, they've given up that child.
The family structure, the family obligations, the family hierarchy is so different from the book, from what I learned by reading your book, than it is here in Canada. Yet underneath it all, our human spirit, our want to nurture, our connection to our children is the same.
And it is. Family is the most important thing to Chinese people. It was after Chairman Mao, who at that time was saying have lots of children, have more babies, we'll rule the world by population. But then the next leaders came in and said, no, our materialistic economy cannot survive on this. We can't feed you all. So this is one way we're going to change.
You've fallen in love with the culture
yes.
through your time there. Where do you think it's going? Is this one-child policy going to become history, or will it continue, do you think?
I'm sure they're going to have to phase it out, because do you know there's 32 million young men right now in China who cannot find a wife.
Okay, we have lots to talk about. We're just touching the surface. We have some upcoming speaking engagements with Diane Bestwick, and we're going to look at those a bit later on this edition of Go Island. Time now for a short break. Still to come today, sea salt recipes from the West Coast Galley and tree forts for grown-ups. These are some of the experiences that author Diane Bestwick had in China that she has collected through photographs and will share in upcoming presentations, one here on October the 8th, another one coming up at Origins on the 21st. We'll give you more details about those later. And this is a little bit interesting. This is, believe it or not, a pillow. Can you imagine having that under your head? And inside of it, you would keep your money. We're going to continue with a little bit of a food theme that we've developed on today's program. We're throwing things over to Jocelyn Matwee for a look at a new book, Sea Salt Recipes from the West Coast Galley. Earlier this year, sea salt won third place in the 2014 Gourmand World Cookbook Awards, and they are shortlisted now for the 2014 Taste Canada Food Writing Award for the English Language Regional Cultural Cookbooks category. And I know that Jocelyn had a lot of fun on that shoot. You're watching Go. Diane Bestwick, author of And a Bird Sang, looking at China's one-child policy. Great insight into the political structure, the cultural structure, history, and background. But that's all done through story and through plot. How, as a first-time writer for a novel, did you balance the factual history with actually just telling a good story?
With a lot of help. I was actually taking a course from Vancouver Island University, and so I had a lot of assignments to do. The first was to come up with a theme, what if? And that's what I said, what if a girl accidentally gets pregnant here? What can she do, or how does she deal with it? And as my colleagues became more comfortable and trusted me more and more as the years went by, they shared a lot of their stories.
And these are colleagues in China?
Yes,
now, yeah.
And families that I actually visited, or in a dormitory once there was a husband and wife and 2 children. And I wanted to know, how come they have 2 children? And they eventually, although they didn't speak very much English, they did, through an interpreter, share their story of having been one of these guerrilla population people where they had to keep moving from their birthplace so that they could keep these 2 children. So,
and the plot does have it all. I mean, there's sex, there's romance, there's infidelity, there is revenge, there is sort of almost like a chase, there's international intrigue and government spying, and yet that's balanced with the very rich and complicated cultural history that China has.
I had a lot I wanted to put in that I had learned in the 8 years about the culture, and tried to understand, because it's not politically correct to talk about the political or cultural revolution, because all cultures, our own culture, we have things that we're embarrassed about, or we didn't really have a part in, but they're part of our history. So, but it influenced the whole society. So somehow I wanted to work that in so that we could truly understand the Chinese families.
Excellent,
as they are.
And I think one of the objectives of your book is to continue to influence societies in a positive way. We're going to talk about how that is being made possible after a short break. Diane is determined that her book will continue to influence the Chinese culture and cultures around the world in a positive way. Proceeds from this book, what's going to happen?
They are going to be given to a foster home in China, which I avoided for the first 4 years visiting because I was afraid I'd fall in love with the children and want to bring them back to Canada. But once I took my grade 10 students there on a routine basis of volunteering, Saturdays and Sundays, we fell in love with the children, and it was through the administration of that home that I learned of the many situations, many first-hand accounts of each child and what had happened.
And the money will do things as simply as provide food.
And operations. Many of these children had hair lips. One little boy I fell in love with had a missing ear, you know, or a lot of spinal bifida, which is to do with malnutrition of the mother. And what a lot of the Chinese women in the countryside, they don't realize that there are operations to fix these children, but they're frightened by it, and they want that perfect child.
And when people are frightened, it's fight or flight, and a lot of the time it's to run away from the problem and pretend that it's not there and keep it tucked away somewhere. Well, there are opportunities for you to experience Diane in person and learn more about the topic of the one-child policy in China and all the good that can come out of that with some acknowledgement and awareness. There's a presentation taking place here at Nanaimo North Library, 6:30 October the 8th. If you've missed that time, there's another one at Origins taking place on the 21st of October, also 6:30. The best place to go get information for that, details on those events, www.dianebestwick.wordpress.com. We're going to throw things over now to a story that I did a little while back about spirit spheres. Still on my bucket list to spend the night in one of those orbs. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. 2 ways, 3 really, to get your hands on And a Bird Sang. You can go to Amazon.com, download a Kindle version. More of the proceeds will go to the orphanage in China, doing it that way, but proceeds will be donated if you purchase it in person from Diane at any of her upcoming presentations or through her website, and you can visit her website for more details on that. We are over time as usual. Thanks for watching Go Island. We'll see you next time.
Lakeside Dental Clinic Go Island is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic, a division of the Vancouver Island Implant Centre, delivering dental services, including dental implants and sedation dentistry, all under one roof. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.